direction?
I've always had this passion to help people. And it actually wasn't my first career path. You know, it took me a while to like actually get into nursing. And I have lots of different paths. Kind of went through a midlife crisis in my 20s because, you know, you try one career. Oh, I don't like that. Let me try another one. Oh, I hate that one. And you just kind of move over. So I just felt like a failure at 27 until I realized, hey, I ran into somebody that I went and got my bachelor's with, and she was like, you should be a nurse. And I'm like, oh my God, I love to help people. And at 28, I started nursing school and haven't turned back since. And went to get my master's in anesthesiology in 2014 and have been doing anesthesia since then, using ketamine, actually. So,
Wow.
Wow.
Is that how you got introduced to ketamine?
Yeah, I've been using it. I pretty much use it on everyone I can because of the amazing benefits that it has as far as like reducing the need for opiates in surgery. It's very safe, especially in my trauma patients. It wasn't actually until 2018, 2019 at an anesthesia conference that somebody presented the benefits of ketamine for mental health. And that completely just blew my mind in the low doses. You know, the doses that I do use in the hospital are a lot higher. So like the safety profile that I have, and I know how great ketamine is, that if it has that opportunity for mental health, I knew, you know, growing up, my family struggled with mental health. And though I was blessed to not be afflicted with it myself, I was affected by it, you know, being within the family, you know, just trying to help, you know, just seeing their struggle, right? The medication is not working, the treatment's not working, just in and out of that battle. And it definitely affected me greatly. So as soon as I learned about that, it was like, I can't turn away. I have to get into that space, you know, and provide it for patients, especially since I can as a nurse anesthesiologist. I'm a CRNA. So
I have a question. So since we're going to talk about ketamine, what is ketamine?
Yes.
Yes. So ketamine actually was developed many, many years ago, originally in the 50s, but then it wasn't really until medical use until the 70s. It got started as being used on the field in the battlefields for military. If you got injured on the field, you received ketamine, right? They went away with ever since actually the Vietnam War. I had a brain fire. Vietnam War, they started using ketamine. So it's traditionally an anesthetic. It's FDA approved for anesthesia and for analgesia, which is for pain. So in normal anesthesia, it makes patients fall asleep. It works on the receptors that you actually sleep. Ketamine actually doesn't make you sleep. Your brain is fully awake. Your body remains fully awake, meaning like your heart rate, blood pressure, everything stays the same, which is why it's so great for, for sick patients, right? What it does as far as the anesthetic is it severs the connection at the limbic system of your brain for your connection of your brain to your body. So you are awake, but you have no concept of what's going on in your body, whether it's a trauma, surgery, all that stuff. That's why it's so beneficial. In the low doses that we provide with our patients in our rooms, they don't get to the deep, anesthetic dosing, obviously, because that's general anesthesia, but they get to the space where their body is numb. They get to go into their mind and, just really kind of delve deep and just kind of work through the inner workings, like what you were talking about, the stories and the mindset that are created, because things happen in your life. Events happen,
of course,
and there's no meaning behind it, right? They're just events, they occur. We create the meaning, and we create it, and it becomes a broken record in our subconscious mind, and it affects how we react to things. It affects how we do everything in life, and that's just the infusion experience aspect. Even if a patient doesn't remember anything, doesn't have any memory, or doesn't have any experience, the chemical benefits of ketamine, where it's working, and it's traditionally known to be working on an NMDA receptor, but there's so much research now. There's so many different receptors. It still works on the GABA receptor, which is what normal anesthesia works on for when you go to sleep. So it helps with calming. It works on AMPA, norepi, dopamine, like all the different benefits that it interacts. in the body. So even if you don't have that infusion, transcending magical experience, mystical experience, they say with like psychedelics, you get the chemical benefits of it. So it is so amazing. So we love it. It's transformed so many people's lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot of benefits. Are there side effects?
So initially so we do screen patients very closely. It's important that, you don't have uncontrolled like bipolar with manic, because that excitation in the brain with the increase in the neurotransmitters and stuff can actually trigger a manic phase. So we want to make sure you're not complete. Like if you have bipolar depression, you're not allowed to get ketamine. We just want to make sure that you are on stable and a mood stabilizer to prevent the possible manic phase. Schizophrenia as well. We don't want to trigger increased hallucinations because it's the increase in brain activity. So auditory hallucinations, can be triggered with that. Also, because it does stimulate or naturally increase blood pressure and heart rate, we do want to make sure, like, if you've had any strokes, we want to make sure that's managed, or blood pressure's managed. If you've ever had a heart attack, we want to make sure your heart's still good, because it will increase those things. And that's what we look for. That's how we know you're getting to your ideal dose, is seeing the trend up and increasing. So those are the kind of side effects that can occur. Those that abuse ketamine on the streets and stuff, they can actually have a lot of bladder issues and have cognitive decline, early onset dementia in the future, for abuse. Yeah, because those are the patients that are doing it, too much. Doing it in a set protocol in the office, we spread out the dosing. The dosing is a lot lower. We're not mixing with it a lot of, you don't know what you're getting when you're getting it on the street. So you do have a lot of different side effects that you could get it on the street, but it's really, really safe, in the proper dosing, proper setting. It's a beautiful thing and very safe.
So people with that have a stent in the body, like in the heart or another part of the body, is also safe to do it.
Correct. We would just want to assure, like, look at an EKG and ask for possibly a cardiac clearance, to see how is the heart function, right? Because we're going to be increasing the heart rate. The blood pressure is going to naturally increase. So we want to make sure that the heart can handle it. It's the same as if you were going to have like an anesthetic. They're going to want to make sure, hey, how's your heart function? And then of course with the strokes, not necessarily like if you've ever had a clot kind of stroke, but if you've ever had a bleeding stroke, like an aneurysm or a blood pressure increase that caused the bleeding stroke, then we would want to make sure that you get a neurologist clearance that everything in your brain is, stable.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Of course.
You don't want any drama kicking off with your health when you're trying to actually help yourself heal and stuff like that. So, what was the driving force for you to create the clinic? You and your partner.
It was just the need. My partner at the time, she actually had wanted to start it before I was ready to start it, because as soon as she found out, she had a really close family friend that had committed suicide, and nobody had any idea that there was anything wrong with them. That's like the most heartbreaking thing. And so she was really pushing for it, and I just wasn't ready. But then at the time, knowing like how much my family suffered and how so many people are still suffering because the medications that are out there, sometimes it's just not enough. And it's just a Band-Aid to the real root cause, which is finding the root cause. It's not a patient who's been suffering from, depression 10 years. You have a chemical imbalance. Here's antidepressant, which does help initially, but really it's really going, what started happening 10 years ago? What changed in your life? What's happening? Whether it's chronic stress, your diet, even just having a baby, right? Postpartum depression is real, grief, loss, were you in high school and you were bullied? Were you cyber stalked? There's so many things. Or you moved, being in the military, you got up and left, and your whole world is different. All those things can cause, and you have to really work through it. And ketamine really allows that.
That's amazing. So, no matter what sort of trauma you've had, I know maybe if you were 6 years old and your best friend moved away, and that's a sort of hidden trauma that gave you an
Yes.
abandonment wound, you could come into your ketamine clinic and have an infusion of ketamine. And what would be the process of how does the ketamine help you work through that sort of buried trauma?
So sometimes it doesn't come out. There's sometimes people have experience where they didn't even really realize. For example, let's say the 6-year-old person that experienced the trauma, in the infusion, it may come out as all of a sudden, because really when you're in the infusion experience, it's just you, your ego's left, your stories are left, and you're just seeing things for how they are, right? Your friend moved, and maybe what happens is in the infusion, you have a memory of you and your best friend playing, and you just feel love. You just feel so much gratitude, and you just love the memory, and you just feel joy and love, and you just come in and you wake up like having that peace, and realizing that you weren't abandoned. She moved because it was her family, right? You weren't abandoned. She didn't intentionally abandon you. It had nothing to do with you. That was just the side effect kind of thing, and the outcome that your subconscious mind created, right? And the infusion allows you to just like let that go, and just realize that it had nothing to do with you, right? Because
So
most things that happen in our lives, it's always tied to us because that's our perception, right? Like everything is related to us, what's going on. If somebody stands you up, they stood me up, right? But 99% of the time it had nothing to do with you. Stuff was happening to them. And that's
Mhm.
what's really difficult in life, is because we are so about ourselves.
Mhm.
Obviously, like, for example, this experience here, us being live, all three of us in this experience, and everyone watching at home, have a completely different perception of what's happening right now,
Mhm.
right?
mhm.
That's what ketamine
So
allows you to let go.
so that like what it does in like in simple way. So what it does, if you have a trauma when you are younger, that what they do is you go to that trauma but with an adult mind, not like when you was a little girl, little boy. So an adult mind, now you understand more like what happened and you can let it go. So that's exactly what the kind of trip this ketamine gave you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it
So
just allows you to just let go and just realize that
Right.
those weren't real.
this is like a psychedelic, correct? It's like if you
Right.
were going to microdose. How is it similar or
Right.
different?
So it's psychomimetic in a sense, because when obviously it's not a plant, it's man-made, right? So